It has been as though Tinubu's policies and program have forced the North to start looking inward. As you have it, the North will be unveiling their second edition of Made in the North Festival. Remember that before now, federal government initiated the idea of tax reform bills that saw the North rising seriously against federal government. And according to them, that the federal government wanted to deplete their revenue base, though they succeeded in using their number in National Assembly to water the bill down. And as you have it, the president already assented to a version that where they expunge every area they felt was repugnant to their interests. But the question here is, I think there's already a breach of trust because they don't want to be caught unawares, because there's every indication in some quarters that when a Tinubu will come back for a second term, that definitely he's going to revisit those areas that he could not achieve in the first round of that amendment. Whereas we have it, the whole essence of the amendment talking about those tax reform bills was ensure that areas that produce get adequately compensated. That area that revenue is derived get adequately compensated. But all this they not rose against, as according to them, they wanted to ensure that the revenue base of the North is not depleted. But again, let's just quickly look at what we have with this. It's coming from a Twitter handle that goes by the name Arewa Twitter. And it says, all road lead to the Made in the North Festival on October 1st, 2025 at the National Stadium, Abuja. It said, don't miss this massive event packed with fun, vibes, and endless opportunities. I think the way it is, like I said earlier on, the North is already seriously looking inward. Let us look at the way the Vanguard put it, for us to have a sense of what we are discussing here. According to the Vanguard, they say over 1,000 creatives, brands to feature at Made in the North Festival. You go further to say that the Made in the North Festival and Trade Fair is set to return to its second edition, with organizers promising a bigger platform to showcase Northern Nigeria's cultural heritage, creative talent, and commercial potential. So I think it is very clear. The North is already strategizing, though it is not bad, because if every region starts thinking inward on how to contribute meaningfully to the national pulse, it's a welcome development. That is why I'm even encouraging the President, Senator Unveil Tinubu, to use his good office to see to the restructuring of Nigeria, to the extent that regions, states should start thinking being productive. Because if the North had allowed the initial tax reform bills, the way the federal government presented it to see through, definitely that would have in a way forced every region, every state to start looking inward to see how they can harness the opportunities that is around them. And once that happens, definitely they will bring more to the table and they will get more. Because the way it is, the North during that tax reform bills were vehement in their position that the federal government wanted to deplete their revenue base. And in fact, even some APC stakeholders who, of course, when they said that the federal government is of APC, stood vehemently against it. For instance, somebody like the governor of Borno, who of course is an ally of the president himself, was vehement in his position that the tax reform bill was to deplete the revenue base of the North. Now, the North is already trying to see what they can do to ensure that they show up their revenue base by looking inward to start encouraging their people to start bringing out the God talent in them. I think it's a welcome development, and every region, every state should start thinking in that direction, because naturally, by providence, God has given everybody talent. God has given everybody knowledge. It is just for you to tap into it and make use of it for the good of humanity. But again, another issue has to do with because before now, there's that issue of out of school children in the North that the leaders are always reluctant to address. I want to say that this is an opportunity, because it's not just about showcasing Made in the North products. It's not about the festival. I think a bigger picture the North should use the opportunity to have a sober reflection. Sober reflection in the angle of how do we take our children out of the streets? How do we ensure that they enroll in the school? How do we ensure that we store the bulk person, that we take up the responsibility to educate our children? Because somehow the issue of insecurity is tied to the out-of-school children in the north. But definitely, the children you are allowed to grow in the white without proper parental care, without proper societal care, will be vulnerable to be recruited and radicalized into terrorism, banditry, and all manner of evil. Because to have it, it's very clear that the child, the newly born child, from a psychological point of view, the brain is a tabula rasa, a clean slate, on which the critical write anything he or she wishes to write. So by the time you as a parent, as the society, as the stakeholders, refuse to write the norms of society to the child, definitely the Boko Haram, terrorists, ISWAP, name them, will help you to write their own value system. So that is why the North must take it up as a responsibility to, particularly the leaders, to do that job. Because for me, it was quite disappointing and disheartening seeing that some stakeholders in the North were blaming federal government for that out-of-school number of out-of-school children in the North. Because even as we agree that the responsibility of training the Nigerian child rests in the three tiers of government, the federal, the state, and the local government. However, what behoves the federal government to do is the policy direction and the funding. Seeing that the children are in school, the building structure, engaging the teachers, rests with the local governments and the state governments. And I think this is what the federal government does across board for all the states in Nigeria. So the question is, why is it that we don't see as much as we see out of school children in the north? Why is it that we don't see such in the south? Because a quick check on out of school children in the country, going by statistics available, shows that in some states in the north, you have as high as 60-something%. In some cases, 50-something%. In some cases, 40-something, 30-something, 20-something, as the case may be. And here you are talking about children within the age bracket of 6 and 16 years. A good percentage of that, talking about 60-something%, 50-something, 30-something, 40-something, are not in school. Of course, this is a recipe for crisis that must be addressed. Because if you look at what came from the San Francisco governor recently, where he said that some of the bandits are people who they know, who hail from his state. So it's going to show that the children, the parents did not play their role in the life of those children from the cradle. Hence, they now become vulnerable to be radicalized and become what they are today. And today, they're already a problem for everybody. So that is why all hands must be on deck, particularly in the north, to ensure that they take their children out of the streets. So that if that is done, it means the ideological part of what happens when people see all this issue of banditry from an ideological point of view would have been addressed. I quite agree and acknowledge the ideology and position of the North, because I have experience in the North that every northern parent, most of them anyway, we always want their children to acquire Islamic knowledge, which they normally call Islamia. But I want to say that even as they do that, they should allow their children to acquire Western education side by side. Because if that happens, definitely it will help the North to build their own human capital, and ultimately they will now have the opportunity to contribute to the general Nigerian table. Because I must say that it is with great disappointment we saw the North, after Jonathan left office, how they jettisoned the project, how they jettisoned the direction Jonathan was leading with, in terms of providing advantageous school for the northern youths. Of course, when a Jonathan government saw that that was a major issue, I must say that was patriotism on the part of a Jonathan. He started building an evangelist schools for the northern children. And of course, that was actually yielding results. But unfortunately, when Jonathan lost election and the Buhari came on board, he jettisoned the whole idea and he stopped the school system. By now, if northern leaders, northern state governors, local government has keyed into that, by now, I think the number of out-of-school children in the North would have been reduced drastically. So I must say that the northern leaders must still continue to think in that direction because it's not late. Well, this issue of insecurity, because they think of it, is already of a national dimension. Because it's even beyond Nigeria, because as we speak today, the world already see and recognize designated Fulani military of Nigerian extraction as the fourth most dangerous terrorist organization in the world. So it means it is no longer a regional issue. It is even already beyond a national issue and is a global issue. So those who seek to lead, particularly in the north, and who lead currently in the north, should know that it behoves on them to address issue of out of school children in the north. Because I want to say this, that if the children of the leaders, when I mean the leaders, the governors, the senators, House of Rep members, House of Assembly members, local government chairmen, councillors in the north, if their children can get education, why would they deprive the common ones in the north from getting the same education? I think there must be policy in place to criminalize any parent that refuse to put his or her child in school, especially when the government have provided every opportunity, every platform that is necessary to achieve it. Because I know definitely it's a responsibility of federal government, state governments, and local government collectively to see that the Nigerian child is educated under universal basic education. Let us hope that the North will address this. Because if you look at the larger picture of it, the insecurity occasioned by whatever area is coming from is part of the reason it's difficult for federal government to woo investors into the country. But definitely, no investor will want to willingly come into an environment where there is insecurity. The world is already a global village. So the world sees what is happening, they follow it. So Nigerian economy for me has every potential to attract investors. Is it in the agricultural sector? Is it in the oil and gas sector? Is it in the solid mineral? So many areas, even in the power sector. But the problem is, no investor want to bring his resources into an environment where there is atmosphere of insecurity. Because number one, the whole essence of investing is to make money and ultimately repatriate your money back to your country. But if there's a threat to life and property in the environment, so no personnel, no investor want to bring his personnel into such environment and even risk his money to start building structures, infrastructure for his investment. Because at the end of the day, those things will be threatened by insecurity. So that is why the earlier we collectively as a people address this insecurity, the better. But on the other hand, the government must deal with those who are already radicalized. They must deal with them in a language they best understand, which is the language of force. That is where the government must collectively possess monopoly of currency power to deal with every recalcitrant character, like the likes of Toji Bello, the likes of Ada Aleru, who are currently holding sway in some part of the country. Because we understand that even Ada Aleru came to a meeting with a peace meeting with some state governors recently, and even in a recent video that made the round, we saw how he used ammunition to wrap his chest. I must say that is unacceptable. That the government must right to the Christian possess monopoly of currency power, root them out of their hiding places, set them running, and bring them to justice, so that the common man, Nigerians who are law abiding, can have a sour relief. I must say it's unacceptable where these people go around kidnapping, maiming, raping, and unchallenged. We can clearly see how they display rap of naira, which they ostensibly receive through ransom paying. Nigerians deserve to be protected, and the governors, the president, local government chairman, who are the responsibility of protecting lives and property, must not give excuse. They must right to the occasion to do that because it behoves on them to protect lives and property. I must say very big thank you for your time. This is Unveil, unveils.